The sky turned black at exactly 14:32 Seoul time. Captain Tae-ho Kim was eating lunch in his office when every bird in the city started screaming at once. Then they fell from the air like rain. The ships came down through the clouds like giant metal insects. They were dark and wet-looking, as if someone had carved them from living bone. Each one was the size of a football stadium. They moved without sound, casting shadows that made the summer day feel like winter. Tae-ho dropped his chopsticks and ran to the window. The emergency sirens were already howling across the city. His radio crackled to life with panicked voices from every military base in South Korea. The same message came from everywhere. Unknown objects in the sky, no response to communication, defensive positions compromised. The first ship landed in Gangnam District. It didn't crash. It settled down like a bird returning to its nest, crushing buildings beneath its bulk. The concrete and steel crumbled like paper. Cars flipped through the air. People ran in every direction, but there was nowhere to go. Then the gas came. It poured from the bottom of the ship like gray fog. At first, people just coughed. Then they started falling down. Their skin began to bubble and melt. In less than a minute, there was nothing left but puddles of pink liquid where human beings used to be. Tae-ho watched in horror as the fog spread through the streets below. Everyone it touched simply dissolved. Men, women, children, pets, even the plants in the park across the street. The gray mist turned everything organic into soup. His radio exploded with screams. Similar ships were landing in every major city around the world. London, New York, Tokyo, Moscow. The reports were all the same. Gray fog, people melting, death everywhere. Tae-ho grabbed his rifle and ran for the stairs. His base was on a hill outside the city, but the fog was moving fast. He had maybe 10 minutes before it reached them. The base was chaos. Soldiers ran everywhere, loading weapons and shouting orders. General Park was screaming into 3 different phones at once. The old man's face was white with terror. "Sir, what are our orders?" Tae-ho asked. General Park looked at him with empty eyes. "Orders? Our orders are to die, Captain. These things just killed half the world in 2 hours." The fog reached the base perimeter at 15:47. Tae-ho watched from the roof as it rolled up the hill like a slow tide. Everything it touched disappeared. Trees, grass, insects, birds, even the wooden fence posts crumbled away. "Gas masks!" someone shouted. "Won't work," Dr. Hyjin Park said from behind them. She was the base scientist, a small woman with thick glasses who always spoke quietly. "This isn't gas. It's some kind of nanomachine, microscopic robots that break down organic matter at the molecular level." Tae-ho stared at her. "How do you know that?" "Because I've seen this before, not here but in my research. I study alien life forms, or I used to before today." Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "These creatures have done this to other worlds. They're farmers, Captain. They plant life on planets, let it grow for millions of years, then come back to harvest it." The fog stopped at the base of their hill. It seemed to hit some kind of invisible wall and spread around them instead of coming up. Tae-ho realized they were inside some kind of energy shield. "Why aren't we dead?" he asked. Dr. Park pointed to a small device on the roof. It was humming softly and glowing blue. "Emergency containment field. It's powered by the base reactor. Might last a few days if we're lucky." From their position, they could see the aliens moving through the city below. They looked like giant spiders made of crystal and metal. Each one was the size of a truck. They carried tanks on their backs that they used to suck up the pink liquid that used to be people. They're collecting us, Tejo whispered. Like farmers collecting milk, Dr. Park agreed. We're cattle to them, nothing more. For 3 days, they watched the aliens work. The creatures were efficient. They moved through every street, every building, collecting every drop of dissolved human tissue. When they were done with Seoul, they loaded their tanks onto the ships and flew away. But more ships kept coming. The radio brought reports from around the world. 3 billion people were dead. Every major city was empty. The aliens were moving to smaller towns now, hunting down the survivors. On the 4th day, their shields started to flicker. We need to move, General Park said. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 days. There's an underground facility in the mountains, military bunker. If we can reach it. That night, they made their escape. 23 soldiers, Dr. Park, and a handful of support staff. They moved through the dead city like ghosts, stepping carefully around the puddles of pink liquid that marked where people used to live. The streets were silent except for the sound of their boots. No cars, no voices, no music from the clubs, just empty buildings and the smell of death. They were halfway to the mountains when Dr. Park's radio started beeping. She pulled out a small device and stared at the screen. "What is it?" Tejo asked. "I'm getting a signal," she said. "Military frequency, deep encryption." Her eyes went wide. "It's coming from the Pacific Ocean, from a facility that's supposed to be a myth." "What kind of facility?" Dr. Park looked at him with something that might have been hope. "The kind that creates monsters, Captain. The kind that might be our only chance." The signal was weak, but the message was clear. Project Fenrir was still active. The sleeping giants were ready to wake up. In the distance, another alien ship descended toward a small farming village. The gray fog began to spread again, dissolving everything in its path. But somewhere deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something else was stirring. Something that had been waiting 30 years for this moment. Something that was going to turn the hunters into the hunted. The water was black and cold, 4 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean. Admiral So-Young Lee opened her eyes in the cryogenic pod and felt ice crystals fall from her eyelashes. The pod's warming cycle hummed softly as her body temperature slowly returned to normal. 30 years. She had been asleep for 30 years while the world above continued without her. The last thing she remembered was the final test, the screaming, and the decision to put the project on ice forever. Now someone had woken her up. The pod opened with a soft hiss. So-Young sat up slowly, her muscles stiff from 3 decades of sleep. The laboratory around her was exactly as she remembered it. White walls, glowing computer screens, and row after row of containment pods stretching into the darkness. Most of the pods were still sealed. Inside each one was a sleeping monster. Admiral Lee. Dr. Min Seo-yoon was waiting for her with a warm blanket and a cup of coffee. The scientist looked older now, with gray hair and lines around her eyes. "I'm sorry we had to wake you. But the situation above ground has changed." So-Young took the coffee with shaking hands. "How bad?" 3 billion dead in the first week. Alien invasion. The surface world is gone. Dr. Yoon's voice was steady, but So-Young could see the fear in her eyes. "They're harvesting humanity like crops." So-Young felt the coffee burn her throat as she swallowed. 3 billion people, more than had died in all of human history combined. The government? Gone. Military command is scattered. We're getting reports from survivor groups, but they won't last long. The aliens are hunting down everyone who's left. So, Young stood up on unsteady legs and walked to the nearest containment pod. Inside, she could see the outline of a human figure, but it was wrong somehow. Too tall, too broad, with limbs that bent in ways that human limbs shouldn't bend. "Are they still stable?" she asked. "More than stable. They've continued evolving in stasis. The genetic modifications we made 30 years ago have been adapting, growing stronger. They're not the same as when we put them to sleep." So Young nodded. She remembered the Beast program. It had been her idea back when she was young and thought she could solve any problem with enough science and determination. They had taken the best soldiers in the world and made them into something better. Something perfect for killing. Something too dangerous to let live. "Show me Do-hyun," she said. Dr. Yoon led her deeper into the facility, past rows of sleeping monsters, to a special containment area. This pod was bigger than the others, with extra security systems and warning signs, in 3 languages. Commander Do-hyun Cho had been the first, the prototype, the most successful and the most dangerous. Inside the pod, So Young could see him floating in the blue liquid. He looked almost human, except for the extra muscle mass and the way his skin seemed to shimmer like metal. His hair had grown long during his sleep and floated around his face like seaweed. "His bone density is now 3 times stronger than titanium," Dr. Yoon explained. "His nervous system has developed electromagnetic sensitivity. He can detect electrical fields from miles away. His blood can clot in seconds, and his body can survive in vacuum for up to an hour." "What about his mind?" Dr. Yoon paused. "That's the question, isn't it? The genetic modifications we made didn't just change their bodies. They altered their brain chemistry, their instincts. In the final tests before we shut down the program, they stopped seeing normal humans as allies." So Young remembered the last test. Do-hyun had torn apart a training dummy that was designed to look like a civilian. He'd done it with his bare hands, and he'd smiled while he did it. "They saw us as prey," she said quietly. "But now the real predators are here. Maybe the beasts will remember which side they're supposed to be on." The facility's alarm system suddenly came to life. Red lights flashed and a computer voice announced, "Perimeter breach detected. Unknown biological signatures approaching from multiple vectors." Dr. Yoon ran to a control panel and started typing rapidly. On the main screen, they could see the ocean floor around their base. Dark shapes were moving through the water toward them. The shapes looked like the alien ships from the surface, but smaller and designed for underwater travel. "They found us," Dr. Yoon whispered. "How long until they reach us?" 20 minutes, maybe less." So Young looked at the rows of containment, pods around them, 144 sleeping monsters, humanity's last hope and its greatest nightmare. "Wake them up," she said. "Ma'am, the revival process takes 6 hours minimum. Their bodies need time to adapt after 30 years of sleep. If we rush it, they could die. If we don't rush it, we're all dead anyway. Override the safety protocols." Dr. Yoon's hands hovered over the keyboard. "Admiral, you know what happened in the last test. They couldn't tell friend from enemy once their hunting instincts kicked in. If we wake them up now, in a combat situation, then we die as monsters instead of as food." So Young's voice was cold and hard. "Do it." Dr. Yoon entered the override codes. Throughout the facility, containment pods began to hiss and bubble as the revival process started. Warning lights flashed as systems that had been designed for gradual awakening were pushed far beyond their limits. In his special pod, Do-hyun's eyes snapped open. They glowed with a soft blue light that hadn't been there 30 years ago. The first alien ship reached the facility's outer hull. It attached itself like a parasite and began cutting through the metal with some kind of acid. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but they wouldn't hold for long. So Young watched the pods around her as the beasts began to wake up. Their bodies were changing as they emerged from the blue liquid. Muscles bulged and shifted, fingernails extended into claws. Teeth grew longer and sharper. Do-hyun's pod opened first. He stepped out into the laboratory like a man stepping out of a shower, except that his skin was now covered in scales and his eyes burned with predatory intelligence. He looked at So Young for a long moment. She held her breath, wondering if he would remember her, or if 30 years of sleep had turned him into something completely wild. Then he smiled, and his teeth were like knives. "Admiral," he said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal, "I smell aliens." Around them, more pods were opening. The beasts emerged one by one, their bodies adapting to the new environment in real time. Some grew gills for underwater breathing. Others developed echolocation abilities. All of them looked hungry. The alien cutting tools finally broke through the outer hull. Gray fog began pouring into the facility's corridors. Du-hyan breathed in the toxic mist and laughed. "They think this will kill us. They don't know what we've become." The hunting had begun. The first alien to enter the facility died before it knew what hit it. Pack leader Sung-min Han moved through the corridors like liquid shadow. His body had changed during the awakening process. His arms were longer now, with joints that bent in extra places. His skin had become dark and smooth, like polished stone. When he breathed, tiny slits along his neck opened and closed like fish gills. The alien creature looked like a giant spider made of crystal and metal. Its legs clicked against the metal floor as it searched for prey. It carried a weapon that sprayed the gray death fog, and its multiple eyes scanned the corridor for signs of life. Sung-min dropped from the ceiling onto its back. His claws, which had grown during his 30-year sleep, punched through the creature's crystalline shell, like it was made of glass. The alien screamed, a sound like breaking metal, and tried to shake him off, but Sung-min's grip was stronger than steel. He bit down on the creature's neck. His teeth, now sharp as needles, found the soft tissue beneath the armor. The alien's blood tasted like copper and electricity. Something in Sung-min's modified brain told him this was good, that he should drink more. The alien stopped moving. Sung-min felt its life force flow into him, and something wonderful happened. His body began to change again, adapting to the new genetic material. His skin grew harder, more resistant to the creature's acid weapons. His nervous system learned to process the alien's electromagnetic signals. He was becoming something better. Down the corridor, more beasts were engaging the invaders. Hana Song moved like a dancer, her body twisting in ways that should have been impossible. She had grown extra arms during her awakening, and each hand ended in claws that could cut through metal. When an alien tried to grab her, she simply flowed around its limbs like water and opened its throat. Woo Jin Park had developed the ability to see heat signatures. To him, the aliens glowed like red ghosts in the dark corridors. He stalked them, methodically killing each one with precise strikes to their vital organs. His body absorbed their bioelectrical energy with each kill, making him stronger and faster. The aliens had expected to find helpless humans hiding in an underwater base. Instead, they found predators that were perfectly designed to hunt them. In The command center, Admiral So-Young Lee watched the battle unfold on security monitors. Dr. Min Seo-yoon stood beside her, taking notes on her tablet as she observed the beasts in action. "Look at their adaptation rate," Dr. Yoon whispered in amazement. "They're incorporating alien DNA in real time. Each kill makes them more effective against the next target." On the screen, they watched as Jae-seok Lee cornered an alien in the storage bay. The creature tried to hide behind a stack of supply crates, but Jae-seok could sense its presence through the metal. During his sleep, his brain had developed the ability to detect living beings through electromagnetic fields. He could feel the alien's fear. Jae-seok punched through the metal crate like it was cardboard. His fist emerged covered in alien blood. The creature tried to run, but Jae-seok was faster. His leg muscles had been rebuilt during his awakening, allowing him to leap 30 feet in a single bound. The alien died screaming. "They're not just killing them," So-Young observed. "They're studying them, learning from them." Young Hee Choi had discovered something interesting about alien technology. The creature's energy shields worked by creating a barrier of charged particles. But Young Hee's modified nervous system could generate its own electrical field. By matching the frequency of the alien shields, she could walk right through them. She appeared behind an alien like a ghost and tore its head off with her bare hands. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, 23. Aliens lay dead in the corridors of the facility. Not a single beast had been seriously injured. Do-hyun Cho stood in the main corridor, covered in alien blood. His body had absorbed genetic material from 5 different creatures, and the changes were visible. His muscles were larger, his reflexes were faster, and his eyes now glowed with a soft blue light that let him see in complete darkness. "Status. Report," So-Young said through the intercom. "All hostiles eliminated," Do-hyun replied. His voice had changed too. It was deeper now, with harmonics that seemed to vibrate through the metal walls. "We've secured the facility." But even as he spoke, more alarms began to sound. On the surface monitors, they could see dozens of alien ships converging on their position. The first assault had been just a scouting party. "How many more are coming?" So-Young asked. Dr. Yoon checked her instruments. "I'm reading at least 50 ships, maybe more. They're mobilizing everything in this sector." Do-hyun smiled, showing teeth that were now clearly designed for tearing flesh. "Good. We're still hungry." The beasts began to change again, their bodies preparing for the larger battle to come. Some grew thicker armor plating. Others developed new sensory organs that could track alien movements through water. A few began to sprout additional limbs. That would be useful for climbing on ship hulls. Intelligence Officer Yoon-ji Kim was studying the alien corpses when she made a disturbing discovery. She called Dr. Yoon over to look at her findings. "Doctor, you need to see this. I've been analyzing the alien blood samples. There's something wrong." Dr. Yoon looked at the data on Yoon-ji's scanner. "What am I looking at?" "Genetic markers. This alien DNA, it's not completely foreign. There are sequences here that match terrestrial life forms, but not just any life forms, extinct predators, things that died out millions of years ago." Dr. Yoon felt cold understanding wash over her. "They've been here before." "More than that. I think they created us. Humanity isn't just another crop to them. We're descendants of their previous experiments." On the monitors, the alien fleet was getting closer, but the beasts weren't afraid. They were excited. Sung-Min Han was leading a group of them to the facility's docking bay, where they planned to board the alien ships directly. "Let them come," Do-hyun said. We've been sleeping for 30 years dreaming of the hunt. Now it's time to show them what their experiments became. Dr. Jin Woo Kang, monitoring from the medical bay, was watching the vital signs of all the beasts. What he saw both thrilled and terrified him. Their bodies were continuing to evolve with each passing minute. They were becoming something that had never existed before on Earth. Something perfectly designed to kill aliens. The first Beast Assault team launched from the facility in a modified submarine. As they rose toward the alien fleet, their bodies continued to change. They were no longer human. They were something new, something hungry. And above them, waiting in the dark water, was an entire alien fleet that had no idea what was coming for them. The alien mothership was a living mountain of bone and metal floating in Earth's upper atmosphere. Hana Song pressed herself against its hull, her claws finding purchase in the organic ridges that covered its surface. Behind her, Strike Team Alpha moved like spiders across the ship's exterior. 3 weeks had passed since the first contact in the underwater facility. The beasts had learned to hunt in the ocean depths, destroying alien scouting parties one by one. But now they were ready for something bigger. Woojin Park had evolved the ability to survive in space. His skin had grown thick and rubbery, and internal organs had developed that could store oxygen for hours. When he exhaled, the moisture in his breath instantly froze into ice crystals that sparkled in the starlight. Breach point located, he whispered into his throat communicator. The device had been grown rather than built, created from modified tissue that could transmit thoughts directly between team members. Hana looked at the spot Wu Jin had marked. It was a feeding port where the ship absorbed nutrients from its smaller vessels. The opening was designed to let in organic matter, not to keep out predators. She pressed her palm against the surface. Her hand had changed during the weeks of hunting. Her fingers were longer now, with joints that could bend in impossible directions. The tips ended in claws that could punch through steel, but they could also become incredibly sensitive when she needed to feel vibrations through solid matter. Inside the ship, she could sense movement. Thousands of aliens going about their business, unaware that death was crawling across their hull. The feeding port dilated open at her touch. The ship's systems recognized her as organic matter and began drawing her inside. She let it pull her into the creature's belly, her team following behind her. The interior of the ship was like being inside a giant stomach. The walls pulsed with a slow rhythm, and everything was covered in a thin layer of digestive fluid. Normal humans would have been dissolved instantly, but the beast's modified skin was resistant to the acid, more than resistant. They were absorbing it, using the nutrients to fuel their own continued evolution. "What is this place?" Wu Jin asked, looking around at the organic architecture. "Food Processing Center," Hana replied. She could taste the air with her enhanced senses, and what she tasted made her angry. "They're still digesting humans here. I can smell dissolved human tissue in the air." Thousands of tons of liquefied human remains were being processed through the ship's digestive systems. Men, women, children from every nation on Earth, reduced to protein soup and stored in vast organic tanks. The team moved deeper into the ship, following the main digestive tract toward the command center. Along the way, they passed storage chambers filled with the remains of other worlds. The aliens had been doing this for millions of years, traveling from planet to planet and harvesting entire civilizations. But they had never encountered anything like the beasts. Jae Seok. Lee was the first to make contact with the ship's nervous system. He had developed the ability to interface directly with bioelectrical networks. when he pressed his hand against one of the ship's neural clusters. Information flooded into his mind. The alien collective consciousness was vast and ancient. Through their shared knowledge, he could see the history of their species. They had consumed thousands of worlds, billions of intelligent species. They thought of themselves as gardeners, cultivating life throughout the galaxy and harvesting it when it reached peak development. But there was something else in their memories, something that scared them. Deep in their racial history was the memory of another species, a race of predators that had hunted the aliens across the stars millions of years ago. They called them the Void Hunters in their language. The Void Hunters had been perfectly adapted for killing, with the ability to evolve instantly in response to any threat. The aliens had thought the Void Hunters were extinct. They had been wrong. "We need to see their command center," Hana said. "If we can access their main computer, we might learn something useful." They found the control room in the ship's brainstem. It was a cathedral-sized chamber filled with organic computers that looked like giant flowers made of crystallized bone. Alien crew members moved between the stations like living jewels, their crystalline bodies reflecting the bioluminescent displays. The aliens didn't notice the beasts at first. The ship's immune system had recognized them as friendly organic matter rather than invaders. By the time the crew realized something was wrong, it was too late. Young Hee Choi had learned to phase shift her molecular structure during the weeks of combat. She could make her body partially intangible, allowing her to walk through energy barriers and armor plating. She materialized behind the ship's captain like a ghost and drove her claws through its skull. The alien died without making a sound. Chaos erupted in the control room. The alien crew turned their weapons on the intruders, but the beasts were no longer the same creatures that had been awakened in the underwater facility. They had evolved beyond their original parameters. Woojin Park could now see across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. To him, the alien's energy weapons appeared as bright lines of force that he could dodge before they were even fired. He moved between the beams like he was dancing, killing everything in his path. Hana Song had grown additional arms during her weeks of hunting. She now had 6 limbs, each one capable of independent action. She fought like a living weapon, striking in all directions simultaneously, while her enhanced nervous system processed combat data faster than any computer. In less than 2 minutes, every alien in the command center was dead. Jae-Shock Lee connected directly to the ship's main computer. The information that flowed into his mind was staggering. Star charts showing the locations of hundreds of harvested worlds. Technical specifications for weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. And most importantly, the location of the alien home fleet. But there was something else, something that made his blood run cold. "Hana," he said urgently, "you need to see this." The main display showed a star map of the local galactic sector. Earth was marked as Harvest World 1147, but there were other markers scattered across the map, dozens of them, each one marked Failed Harvest, Void Hunter Activity. "They've tried to harvest our solar system before," Jae-Shock explained. "Multiple times over the last several million years. Something kept driving them away." Hana studied the data. What was it? According to their records, it was us. Humanity. Or rather, our ancestors. We're descendants of the Void Hunters. The genetic modifications we underwent didn't create something new. They awakened something that was already inside us. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just another victim species. They were the descendants of the galaxy's apex predators. The aliens hadn't come to harvest Earth. They had come to finish a war that had been going on for millions of years. Around them, the ship began to shudder. The death of the command crew had triggered automatic defense systems. Bulkheads were sealing, and the ship's immune system was finally recognizing the beasts as a threat. "Time to go," Hana said. But as they prepared to leave, she noticed something on the main display, a communication from the alien home fleet. The message was simple. "Initiate Protocol 7. Sterilize the system." Through the ship's sensors, she could see massive alien vessels emerging from hyperspace. Not harvest ships this time. These were warships. The aliens had decided that Earth was too dangerous to harvest. They were coming to destroy it completely. "We need to get back to the others," she said. "This is just the beginning." As Strike Team, Alpha fought their way out of the dying mothership. The real war was about to begin. But this time, humanity wouldn't be fighting as prey. They would be fighting as predators. Alpha Prime Kyung-Soo Nam no longer looked human. Standing in the command center of the underwater facility, his body had evolved far beyond its original form. 2 additional arms had grown from his torso, each one lined with sensory organs that could detect electromagnetic fields, chemical traces, and vibrations through solid matter. His skin had become translucent, showing the network of modified organs beneath that pulsed with bioluminescent light. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that could be heard and felt through the water around the facility. "The alien war. Fleet numbers 300 ships," he reported to the assembled pack leaders. "They have weapons capable of cracking planets. They intend to sterilize Earth completely rather than risk losing another harvest." The other beasts, gathered around the holographic display, looked nothing like the soldiers they had once been. Weeks of constant evolution had transformed them into something entirely new. Some had developed thick armor plating, others had grown, wings or additional limbs. All of them radiated a predatory intelligence that made the air itself feel dangerous. Assassin Unit Sujin Lim had perhaps changed the most. Her body could now alter its bone density at will, allowing her to become solid enough to punch through steel or light enough to float like smoke. Her nervous system had developed quantum processing capabilities that let her exist in multiple probability states simultaneously. When she moved, reality seemed to bend around her. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked. 67 hours, Kyung-Soo replied. "But they won't come alone. Intelligence reports indicate they're bringing species from 12 different worlds, allied races that they've conquered and turned into weapons." Dr. Byung-Ho Shin, the last surviving scientist from the original project, studied the tactical data with growing amazement and horror. The beasts were no longer just enhanced humans. They had become a completely new form of life, one perfectly adapted for interstellar warfare. "Your genetic structure is unlike anything I've ever seen," he told Kyung-Soo. "You're not evolving randomly. Your bodies are adapting with purpose, as if they know exactly what kind of enemy you'll face next." Kyung-Soo's multiple eyes focused on the scientist. During the past week, he had grown additional visual organs that could see across different spectrums of light and energy. "We can feel them coming. Every alien ship, every weapon, every thought in their collective consciousness. Our ancestors fought these creatures before. Their memories are awakening in our genes." On the display, more data flowed in from beast reconnaissance teams scattered across the solar system. The aliens weren't just bringing warships. They had constructed massive biofactories in space, churning out millions of combat drones designed specifically for fighting void hunters. But the beasts were ready. Fleet Commander Boram An had evolved into something that could survive in the vacuum. of space for extended periods. Her lungs had been replaced by a closed circulation system that recycled oxygen at the cellular level. Her skin had grown thick enough to resist cosmic radiation, and her bones had become hollow and flexible like those of a bird. She floated outside, the facility in the dark water, her enhanced senses scanning the ocean for threats. Through her connection to the beast collective consciousness, she could feel her packmates preparing for battle across the globe. The human survivors who remained on Earth's surface had no idea what was coming. They huddled in their underground shelters, thinking the worst was over. They didn't know that their planet was about to become the battlefield for a war that had been raging for millions of years. In the facility's biolab, the remaining beasts were undergoing final modifications. Their bodies absorbed genetic material from captured alien samples, adapting to counter-specific weapons and defensive systems. The process was no longer controlled by human science. The beasts' own biology had taken over, guided by instincts older than human civilization. Tracker Jae-seok Lee had developed the most unusual adaptation. His consciousness could now extend beyond his physical body, spreading through electronic networks and bioelectrical systems across vast distances. Through the global internet and communication satellites, he had created a neural web that connected every surviving piece of human technology. He was becoming Earth's nervous system. "I can feel them approaching the outer system," he reported. "The alien fleet is massive. But there's something else, something they're afraid of." Through the captured alien computers, he had accessed their deepest archives. The records went back millions of years, documenting the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But one pattern repeated throughout their history. Whenever they encountered void hunters, they ran. "They never defeated us," Jae-seok continued. "In every recorded encounter, the aliens either fled or were destroyed. They've been trying to wipe out our bloodline for eons, but they've never succeeded." Kyung-soo's expression was unreadable. His face had elongated during his evolution, becoming more predatory. His teeth were now clearly designed for tearing through crystalline alien armor. "They're not coming to fight us," he realized. "They're coming to commit genocide. They want to destroy Earth completely because they're terrified of what we might become." The tactical display updated with new information. The alien fleet was decelerating as it approached the outer planets. But instead of heading directly toward Earth, they were taking up positions around the entire solar system. "They're surrounding us," Dr. Shin observed. "No," Kyung-soo corrected. "They're trying to contain us. They don't want any of us to escape into deep space." But they had underestimated how much the beasts had changed. Several pack leaders had already developed the ability to survive in space indefinitely. Others had grown organic systems that could navigate by stellar radiation and magnetic fields. The beasts were no longer bound to Earth. As the alien fleet completed its encirclement, something unexpected happened. Deep space monitoring stations detected new signals from beyond the solar system. Ships were approaching from multiple directions, but they weren't alien vessels. They were responding to a call that the beasts hadn't even known they were sending. "What are those?" Dr. Shin asked, staring at the display. Jae-seok's consciousness expanded across the global network, reaching out to touch the approaching signals. What he found made his blood sing with recognition. "They're like us," he whispered. "Other worlds, other descendants of the void hunters. The genetic awakening here on Earth has triggered something across the galaxy. On a dozen different worlds, in species that had forgotten their ancient heritage, dormant genes were activating. The children of the void hunters were remembering what they used to be. The aliens had made a critical mistake. By trying to destroy Earth, they had awakened something far more dangerous than a single world of evolved predators. They had awakened an entire galaxy of them. Kyung-Soo raised his multiple arms, and every beast in the facility felt his thoughts. Through their shared consciousness, the time for hiding was over. The time for evolution was over. The time for hunting had begun. "Send the signal," he commanded. "Let our cousins know we're here. Let the aliens know what's coming for them." As the message pulsed outward through space, carried by technologies that were part machine and part living organism, the alien fleet began to detect the responses. Ships were emerging from hyperspace throughout the galaxy, all heading toward Earth. The final war was about to begin, and this time, the Predators were going to win. 6 months after the last alien ship died screaming in Earth's atmosphere, Prime Alpha Do-hyun Cho stood on what used to be the peak of Mount Everest. The mountain was lower now, reshaped by the final battle into a platform that could support the massive organic structures growing from its surface. He no longer resembled anything that had once been human. His body had become something between plant and animal, with root-like extensions that reached deep into the mountain's core. Multiple limbs branched from his torso, each one serving a different function. Some ended in claws for combat. Others terminated in sensory organs that could detect movement across continents. His head had elongated and split into 3 distinct sections, allowing him to process information from multiple sources simultaneously. When he breathed, spores filled the air around him. The spores carried genetic information that would terraform Earth's atmosphere to better suit the new apex species. Below him, the planet was changing. Where human cities once stood, organic towers now grew from the Earth like massive trees. These structures were alive, serving as both homes and breeding grounds for the beasts. They pulsed with bioluminescent veins that carried nutrients and information throughout the global network. The few surviving unmodified humans lived in carefully maintained reserves, protected and studied like an endangered species. Dr. Hai-jin Park was among them, documenting the transformation from her laboratory in what used to be Seoul. She was the last human scientist, and possibly the last human who remembered what the world was like before the beasts awakened. Population status report. Do-hyun's voice resonated through the bioacoustic network that now covered the planet. His words were felt rather than heard, vibrating through the living structures and the bodies of every beast on Earth. Current population: 847 active beasts, 23,000 humans in protected reserves, responded the collective consciousness. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, the combined thoughts of hundreds of evolved predators speaking as one. Shipyard status: first-generation vessels approaching completion. Biohull integrity at 97%. Weapon systems fully integrated. Navigation instincts operational. Do-hyun's multiple eyes turned skyward, where the new ships were taking shape in Earth's upper atmosphere. They weren't built in the traditional sense. They were grown, cultivated from modified beast genetics and alien technology that had been absorbed during the war. Each ship was alive, capable of healing damage, adapting to new environments, and reproducing when necessary. More importantly, they were hungry. The pack mentality that had once governed small groups of beasts now extended across entire fleets. The ships would hunt together, sharing information and resources as they tracked their prey across the galaxy. Pack leader Sung Min Han materialized beside Do-hyun through a process that looked like controlled teleportation. His body had become partially energy-based, allowing him to move through the bioelectrical networks that connected all beast territories. The long-range sensors have detected alien activity in the Centauri system, he reported. Harvest ships. They're trying to complete an operation they started before coming to Earth. Do Hyun's response was immediate and decisive. Send Strike Group Alpha. No survivors. The first beast ships launched that evening, rising from Earth's surface like living comets. They moved without engines, propelled by internal biological processes that could manipulate gravity and space-time. As they accelerated toward their target, they continued to evolve, adapting their hulls and weapons for the specific enemies they would encounter. Dr. Park watched the launch from her protected observation dome. Through the transparent biomaterial walls, she could see the ships departing like a swarm of predatory insects heading toward distant prey. "What have we become?" she whispered to herself. As if responding to her question, a gentle vibration passed through the dome. It was Do Hyun's voice, carried through the global network. "We have become what we always were, Dr. Park, what we were meant to be before we forgot ourselves." The ships reached the Centauri system in 3 weeks, covering a distance that should have taken decades. When they arrived, they found exactly what the sensors had detected: an alien harvest operation in progress. The planet below was Earth-like, covered in blue oceans and green continents. But the green was fading. Gray fog drifted across the surface, as the aliens converted the planet's biosphere into easily transportable nutrients. The native species had been reduced to pink liquid, just as humanity almost was. Strike Group Alpha attacked without warning or mercy. The alien ships, designed for harvesting rather than combat, had no defense against predators that could phase through energy shields and adapt to any weapon in real time. The beast ships flowed around their targets like water, then solidified into cutting tools that sliced through alien hulls. But the beasts didn't just destroy the harvest fleet. They absorbed it. The organic ships consumed the alien technology, incorporating useful components into their own biology. They learned the aliens' navigation methods, their communication protocols, their knowledge of other harvest worlds. Most importantly, they acquired the locations of more prey. When Strike Group Alpha returned to Earth, they brought disturbing news. The Centauri system wasn't an isolated operation. Through the captured alien data, they had discovered a network of harvest worlds, spanning dozens of star systems, and every one of them was still active. "How many?" Do Hyun asked. 67 confirmed harvest operations. Possibly more. The aliens have been working on a galactic scale for millions of years. Do Hyun's multiple brains processed the information with cold efficiency. 67 worlds, billions of sentient beings being dissolved into protein soup to feed alien expansion. It was time to go hunting. Over the following months, more beast fleets launched from Earth. Each group was specialized for different types of prey. Some were designed to hunt in the vacuum of space. Others could survive on gas giants or in the hearts of stars. The galaxy's predators had awakened, and they were hungry. Reports began filtering back from across known space. Alien outposts going silent. Harvest fleets disappearing without trace. Entire alien colonies found empty, their populations consumed by something that left no survivors to describe what had killed them. The aliens' greatest fear was becoming reality. The Void Hunters had returned, and this time they weren't just defending a single world. They were claiming the entire galaxy. Dr. Park received her final research update on a cold winter morning. Through the bioacoustic network, she could hear the voices of beasts scattered across dozens of star systems. They spoke of successful hunts, of alien strongholds destroyed, of entire species liberated from harvest operations. But they also spoke of something else. As they consumed more alien technology and genetic material, they were becoming something beyond even their current evolution. They were approaching a state that transcended individual existence, becoming part of a galactic consciousness that spanned light years. Humanity, as she had known it, was extinct. But what had replaced it was something far more magnificent and terrible. The last entry in her research log was simple. The children have come home to the stars, and they are very, very hungry. As she wrote those words, a new signal pulsed through the galactic network. It was a hunting call, transmitted across thousands of worlds where alien operations continued. The call was answered from every corner of the galaxy, as species that had forgotten their ancient heritage remembered what they truly were. The age of the harvesters was ending. The age of the hunters had begun. And in the cold depths of space, alien monitoring stations detected something that filled their collective consciousness with primordial terror. Earth's children were coming to visit. All of them.